Well, welcome back to another segment in our cabinet series, Eric.
Well, thank you, Jim. Glad to be here.
I thought in this one we could talk a little bit about what I know are a lot of options and maybe the quality of products and so forth. So could you tell us a little bit about how you would assess the quality of the things Dunn Lumber has available?
So the cabinet manufacturers that Dunn buys from are considered modular cabinet companies, although they are definitely higher-end modular cabinet companies. Both companies allow the modification of their standard cabinets in just about any way you can imagine. You have the option with both companies that if you just cannot find a cabinet in their catalog that you like, you can design it from scratch and they will quote it, and very few things get turned down. So you can actually get a custom cabinet from these companies.
Wow. So if I've got a design that 95% of it can be filled with their semi-custom standard things in the catalog, right, but all of a sudden, gosh, we've got this space and it really needs to be this space. You could send in drawings and they could make exactly what you want, match the rest of it.
Yeah. In my designs, my goal is to use as many standard sizes of cabinets as possible, because that does reduce the cost because it's something that's in their catalog.
Sure.
Anytime you go to customize the cabinet for dimensions or whatever, there is increased cost for that. Okay. But there are times that's what you need, and so that's what you do, and all the way up to what is called a special products request, where you send them a drawing of what you want and they will quote it, and very few things get turned down.
I'm almost afraid to ask this question, but could you talk a little bit? This is not a fully custom scenario where you find an old world craftsperson with a shop and they order lumber and plywood and make every part and piece themselves. It's a semi-custom situation, but what kind of options are there as far as wood species and paint colors and stain colors, things like that?
I'm going to take a moment here and refer to my notes. I actually worked this out. One of the manufacturers we use has 15 different species of wood, 106 different door styles, 22 different stain colors, 24 standard paint colors, and they have the option of using Sherwin-Williams paint numbers, and they have over 1,100 paint colors. Wow. So when you do the math, that's over 920 million variations.
That's a lot.
Yes, that's a lot.
I think we should be able to figure something out.
We can get pretty close.
Okay. Well, I know people and for good reason, get emotionally involved in a project like a kitchen or something like that. It's very personal, and maybe it's their dream thing. It's the one thing in their life they're going to do exactly how they want because it's what they want to do for themselves and their family. If something goes a little sideways, how does Dunn Lumber support that? How do their vendors support working through that stuff?
I have been constantly amazed at Dunn's customer service after the sale. If the product comes out damaged or is in some way not right, then Dunn and our cabinet manufacturers, move mountains to get this corrected and get it out as fast as possible. But you do need to keep in mind that the cabinet companies do not have products sitting on a shelf in a warehouse someplace. They do have to manufacture that product to get you your replacement parts. So there is some time involved. You need to keep that in mind. But you have both Dunn and Dunn's reputation for service helping you and taking care of you after the sale. And then you have the cabinet manufacturers, because it's important to them that they produce quality product and get it to where you want it to be.
Yeah, totally makes sense. If our vendors, if they aren't of the like mindset as Dunn Lumber, value-oriented with a long-term view, I know people can always get something. You'll always be able to get something less expensive. But when there are challenges that do come up, it's, who's there with you to help work through it. So that's just a big thing for me, I know.
Well, I know that when I was running my own company, which was for 32 years, that I was never the lowest bid on a project, and the subs that I used were never the lowest price subs, but there were people that I could count on, and I knew they were going to be there if there was a problem, and that is really worth it. So yes, you can find cheaper cabinets, but you need to take into account if something goes wrong.
Yeah, good stuff. One last point I wanted to close out on. A lot of times at Dunn Lumber, how we go to market, we're typically buying a better quality product if and when we can, certainly supporting it to the nth degree whenever possible. If you do a design for somebody and they call you up or they send you an email and say, hey, got the same design for 30% less, what's the problem? How do you address that, and what goes through your mind at that process?
Well, my first comment is we didn't quote the same product with the same specifications. This has happened a few times that someone has brought a quote in and said, why are you so much more expensive? And so what I ask is, will you please show me the specifications of what you did have quoted? Is that I don't care what the prices are. I just need to know that we're looking at apples to apples. If a manufacturer has quoted particle board cabinet boxes and I quoted plywood, right there is about a 10% difference in cost because of the cost of the material. Well, I need to know this to make sure that I quote, match my quote to what your quote, the quote you got from another company is, as close as possible. I have found that when we are careful and do that, that we are right in the ballpark with pricing wise with other cabinet companies.
That totally makes sense. I'm assuming there could be minor differences in hardware, maybe even finishes, just different things that people can do to take a little bit of the price out of it and slide out a less expensive option. Well, I think that's great to keep in mind. Sometimes you just get what you pay for. And the last thing I know you want or I want is for a client to go through all that time and effort building their dream kitchen potentially and end up with something that they didn't know, they didn't expect.
That's really important. And, that's something that as a designer and an installer that I kind of had to guard against, is that I knew exactly what they were getting and what it was going to look like. And I had to remind myself that I needed to convey this to the customer because they most likely would not know some of the finer details because they've never experienced it before. So that was one of my goals, was to make sure that the customer knew exactly what they were getting when they signed on the dotted line and handed me their check.
Yeah, it's one of the great things about Dunn Lumber. No matter whether you're on the front counter selling building materials all day or in a specialty sales position like you were, we care. And really proud of that. Appreciate it. Thanks for this segment, man.
My pleasure, Jim.
All right,